Hola, mi gente, and welcome to another episode of Sazon Talk.
Welcome back. Thank you guys for listening to all previous episodes of Sazon Talk. We truly do appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe on the YouTube page at the Job Tears Podcast Network and also follow us on Instagram at Sazon Talk. Tonight is a very, very personal and dear special episode to me. So I do want to already thank Amanda for allowing partnering with this episode because, it is very personal for me, and it's a blessing actually to be able to do this. I didn't even think we were able to do this at all this year. So this is actually really, really wild. So tonight we have a very, very special guest here with us that's going to share her personal story, which some of it most of it, all of it I know of. But, well, maybe I feel like just like how you always say one thing and I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
I already know there's going to be one thing that she's going to say and I'm going to be like, excuse me? Where the fuck was I at? So joining us tonight is my friend of over 25 years, Jesus Christ.
Going on 27.
Over 25 years of friendship here at the table. I have my best friend, entrepreneur, stylist, marketing guru in the building.
So sweet.
We have Miss Joy Cohen in the building, all the way from Houston, Texas.
Woo-woo.
She's visiting, so it's really, really glad we're able to get this episode in. But tonight's episode theme is going to be her coming out story. A lot of people, we all experience, friends and family that have, dealt with, different things in terms of coming out, especially, whether it's a religious background situation or family that just kind of low-key ignorant and just don't know how to handle or deal with certain things. So she's going to give us her raw, uncut story of her coming out celebration. You know what's so funny? The other day when I was on the phone with you and we were talking about when you got married and that pastor.
The officiant? Be clear. Wasn't a pastor.
Because
Close enough.
Yeah, because the way that she was preaching, you would have
Close
closed your
enough.
eyes. You would have definitely
Enough,
thought
man.
it was pastor in the building.
Absolutely.
So before we do get started and digging deep into your story, tell us a little bit about, you, your background, a little bit on, how your journey into actually finding out, like, your own sexuality in a sense. Because I feel like interesting.
Conversation.
I mean, this is Sazon Talk. It's a little spicy.
Very spicy.
Oh, man. Might have Sazon turn the conversation out. Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you for the wonderful intro. I am so happy to be here. I definitely told Janelle the very next time I came to New York, if I didn't do anything else, I would make sure, come hell or high water, that we would figure something out so that I could get in the building. So I'm very grateful and I'm very happy to be here and share this experience with you all, just because I'm so proud of everything you have going on. But that's probably a conversation for another time.
That's
leave
dinner.
I know. I'll table that, but proud bestie in the building.
Thank you.
But anywho, so a little bit about me. Well, my name is Joy, and I am now a full-time entrepreneur based out of Houston, born and raised in New York. Of course, I spent some time in D.C. as well because I went to Howard, which is also fun stuff. And I am now in Houston with my wife, as Janelle mentioned, which we are going on 7 years of marriage.
So y'all got married the same year Bobby Smurder went to jail.
Shut the front door.
I didn't realize it.
Love Bobby Schmurder.
I didn't realize it until he got released the other day. They was like, he's out from 7
Girl.
years. I said, wait. This nigga did a 7-year bid?
Girl, that's wild.
Like, hot
right?
nigga shit was 7 years ago?
Where does the time go? And also
What?
in true ratchet fashion, because, I mean, your bestie and her
They live for the
partner,
goodness.
we got hitched during Howard's homecoming weekend. So we're live at 5. So the officiant she talks about is actually very interesting part of that story.
I
So
thought
we
you
could
was
just
gonna
kind of like
say-
jump into it.
I thought you was going to say she was a stripper. And I was
No.
going to be like... and I would have died. I would have been like,
No.
see what I mean?
No,
Something.
no. But oddly enough, how we even ended up getting hitched, so we can actually get into a part of a story that may be a little like out of order. But even the premise of getting hitched was because at that point, Brandy and I had been together off and on since we were probably about 19 years old. And some we were, our families were like in and out and in and out, and there were just so many different opposing opinions, and like we were like living together and stuff like that. And I remember our biggest thing was just before we ended up deciding to get hitched, there was a horrific story that had just released, and it was this gay couple. They were two males, two white males, whatever. They were a bit older, and they were engaged, and they were building this home together in D.C. And it was all over the news, and it went viral because everyone was trying to get support and help. And to make the longest story short, the couple had been together for over a decade. They were estranged from their families, but everyone was aware of the fact that they were indeed gay. They built this home together. When they went and did the walkthrough of the home, there was a horrific accident because it wasn't finished. And in that horrific accident, one of the two partners ended up dying, okay? When he passed away, they weren't officially married yet, so they had no paperwork to protect each other at all. And even though they were completely estranged from their family and everyone knew where they were together, the deceased party's family stepped in, and not only did they take the body and completely take over and completely shut his partner out, but he wasn't even allowed to pay his respects, to go to the hospital, to, have a burial, funeral, anything like that. And I remember that story in particular. I was working at GW at the time in the medical field, still living in D.C., and that story just like really shook my soul, because here you had two grown adults and everyone could vouch for what they had going on, but because they didn't have paperwork in order and it wasn't a hetero situation, that, he was just completely disregarded. And he had gone through this YouTube series, and he was putting out all these videos, crying, asking for help. All their friends were deeply trying to, get the family support. And, he never got to pay his, that was the last of it. Like, nothing ever came of that for him, because legally he had no rights to his relationship. So anyway, we came home, and it was just like, bro, like with our families and with everything going on, it was just like we knew then that having been together for so long, just off the strength of like, God forbid, if something should happen to you right now, we couldn't trust either of our families to do right by our relationship. And not by us as individuals, but, I'm very specific when I say right by our relationship. So we did not think anybody would want to show up for us. So instead of even like going through all of this, we saved ourselves some heartache by saying like, we're just going to get hitched, and here's a courtesy to you to let you know. Some of the response was a little overwhelming, because like a couple more people, I guess, wanted to be there than we thought. Of course, you had a few disappointing people where it was just like, wow, I thought you would have been one that wanted to be there. Now here I'm finding out that you're morally objecting to me. You know what I mean? So we made that decision, and a couple people wanted to come. So even an officiate thing, like, wasn't legal in all states, and it had just become legal in like D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. So like the courts were completely like overshadowed, like crowded, so we just had to find an officiant. That was the only option we had. And to your point, funny story, her parents were like around for the Loving case, so she fights so hard to like marry gay people in particular, because her parents' love was illegal. So she is a purposely like an officiant for alternative unions per se, because her parents' marriage was illegal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yo, so that officiant though. Yo.
So that's how it came about.
Cause I literally, she had told us. I don't remember when she told us. Cause when they got hitched, that was the beginning of October. Yeah. Which was kind of, it fell actually into, I think, Columbus Day weekend. That, well, I think that year. That year. But most of the time it ends up being Columbus Day weekend. So she was just like, yo, we're gonna do this. And like, I think at the time, I can't remember where I was working at the time, but I couldn't stay the full time. But I made sure like that ceremony,
it was a Thursday.
No matter what, it was like, I gotta be there. So like took the bus down, went to, she did the ceremony, and then
all 8 of us. It was only 8 of us.
Yeah, it was a small, literally, it was everybody like us here in the room. That was it.
Period.
So, but literally the officiant, she was low-key extra, but it was hilarious though. And we all just awkwardly looked at each other like, is this real?
Right.
Like it felt like the Twilight Zone. Like it was just like,
it
what?
felt like the Twilight Zone for me, standing up there.
She was standing up there for a hot minute.
Because it's like, I'm sure terminology is gonna get weird in this, but it's like, I'm not like a gold star lesbian or whatever. So it's just like, I too was shocked. I didn't think I was gonna marry a woman. I was like, damn, bitch, you really doing this?
For real?
Can we use profanity?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
shit. It's like, well, shit, bitch, you really doing this too? Like, god damn, I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone.
Because and so a little background story about me and Joy. We went to kindergarten together, so that's why we say like we have a 25-year friendship, over 25 years of friendship. And then this is how I know low key, like, everybody's spiritual with it. This is how I know God works. We ended up
very true
being estranged because she ended up moving to the Bronx, and I stayed in Harlem, and I went to junior high school in Harlem and stuff like that. I went to high school in the Bronx. I don't know if I ever told you, the day we walked from Hop to LGJ, my mom kept saying, yo, that lady looks familiar. And I kept saying, you're crazy.
Right.
I don't know what you're
my
talking
mom
about.
did the same thing, and she was like, I think one of your old classmates is
She
in this
kept
school
looking
with you.
at Joy's mom like, yo, she looks familiar. And I was just like, all right. It's mind you, it was early in the morning.
Thieves, even though we only spent that 1 year together, like we had so many pictures together,
We
like
tons of pictures, birthday
and all of
parties,
that,
mad
so
shit.
it was very interesting.
So it was until we was in like a social studies class. Everybody's basic
Yorkie.
social studies class assignment was like, tell your biography, tell about your life. This bitch get up there because she loved to public speak. She get up there and she started telling her story, and I said,
and remember, it was a photo book.
yeah,
so
so it was like different photos and stuff. And I said, shit, that's me. And her, we standing next to each other. So after the class, I said, yo, I think we went to the same elementary school.
Now you had the same picture,
and I had the exact same picture at
She
my
had the
mom's
exact same
house.
picture.
Like, it's in my mom's room. Like, actually, now that I think about it, last time I went home. And we've been this.
And I hate to say it,
from
the
there.
craziest part about it, if you ask me anybody else's name from that kindergarten class, I could not tell you. But I had so many pictures like with Janelle, so I never forgot her. So it's just like, even for me, like, she was a part of that kindergarten memory, like in my head. You know what I mean? Like, and I was like, well, don't ever know where the girl went. You feel me? But like,
Right, it was just like,
this was my
this
bitch,
was my
y'all.
nigga.
You
Like,
feel me?
hard body, like like birthday party, everything.
I'm
That
like,
was
this
my
is
nigga.
girl in kindergarten,
So
yo.
it just, that's
And
why I
we've been together
said
ever since.
So that's why I say, really God works, because that I couldn't put that. No one else can have that type of story, because that's just weird as fuck.
Right.
So in high school and stuff, we definitely were interesting parties of go have nights in Webster,
Oh, yeah. Like,
Kappa House.
Oh my God. that Kappa
So
House.
just like growing up though, like all of us was always like was attracted to guys, to boys and stuff like that. So like we talk about dudes, we do this, do that. So like talk about a little bit of like that transition from like when you were talking to guys.
Yeah.
And had a really she did have a love for an individual.
Yeah, like I've definitely, like I'm a
So-
really open book. So it's just like, for me, like I've been in love before, you know what I mean? Like I would say, like, I've probably been in love with like at least 2 other people, maybe before I got married. But I guess what I thought, like, in a sense, like in love was to a certain degree,
Right.
you know what I mean? Because it's like, as we continue to mature and change and stuff like that, and you like learn more about yourself even as you
Yes.
get older, like you realize sometimes that, like, I'm not going to say like your feelings were misguided, because you can definitely have affinity and care to someone. But like when you get into other situations, like that may not have been the type of love you maybe should have been seeking, or that's not really what love is about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more of like
That's
young
the,
infatuation.
one of the episodes that we did, the stages of love.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, so and definitely, I mean, truth be told, like everyone will tell you, I'm more of a boy crazy type of person. So it's just like this came as like a real
Left
kind of
field.
shock, to everyone, and not because it was like so unexpected, because I'm also like, my nature is very hippie-ish, like a flower child. Like I'm a Pisces and stuff like that.
She's a
like
free
if
spirit.
you ask me, like, like kind of being naked and and maybe spirited, of sorts, would be my ideal like thing.
Life.
It's like my ideal
Like
life.
if Joy could walk around naked
Every day,
no
of my
care
life,
in the
like,
world.
none, like at
hands
all.
down,
Like,
she would be like,
so
sign me
even
up.
then, like Janelle, her personality is not necessarily like as like I'm a very, like, I'm an oversharer. I'm, like, super affectionate. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm going to talk to them on the toilet and stuff like that. And, like, that is something that I know she only deals with, like, with me, because she just be like, enough. Like,
Yeah,
it's
because
too
I don't.
much.
It was
You
something
feel
that we
me?
were talking
Like,
about this past Sunday at Legends, and Janelle was just like, "What?" And I was just like, "Okay, Janelle's that person."
Yeah. Oh no, she not that intrusiveness. You trying to get all up in her business? She don't like that. You
No,
understand? What I'm saying?
negative.
Like, she don't like none of that.
No, so that's why I like. So like that's why like when if and when I do say, like that's how you know it's real because I'm saying it. Like it's like on something like so like I was telling. So the last episode we was talking about like people that like out of the blue come out of nowhere and be like, oh, you got a boo now, you got this, you got that now. So it's just like. Yo, but niggas don't peep game until you start posting niggas and you be like, this is how they giving it up.
Because we definitely like more like low key and discretion. Like that's just a word I use because I just believe in it and I feel like sometimes people share the wrong things looking for a different type of attention. Yes. You know what I mean? So I am very intentional about like my public platforms just in general. I mean, for work and whatnot. But in terms of transitioning, like in being a free spirit, like I can honestly say like definitely always being attracted to girls, thinking they were cute. I have no problem making out with them, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I guess growing up, some people was just like, you realize that not necessarily wasn't normal, but like people do experiment. So it's just like, it may not have been normal for some. And I guess that's how you know you strictly dickly. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But for people like me who just be like, you know what I mean? Like,
that's
I'm
okay.
trying anything once, you know what I mean? Let's see. You know, I guess it was like cool. So I guess in high school, and you know, and then there was some interesting like friendships with females that were possibly maybe a little more intense than others and like shouldn't have been, and maybe those were red flags that kind of went under the radar and blew up later. I don't know. Totally you know what I mean?
Because Joy is notorious for like just being the free spirit that she is. She's notorious of just being like lovey, like I love you, not knowing niggas is really in love with her. Not knowing niggas is really like willing to risk it all. And then she get that face.
Yeah.
How did this happen? What do you like? What did I do? How do you mean? It's like, but bitch, you did this.
Yeah, my wife says all the time, she was just like, you're effing tease, and I would have left your ass if I knew you back then. She was like, enough. Annoying.
Literally.
But so the turning point, though, all jokes aside, was probably like that freshman year of college situation, because again, the girl stuff, it was very touch and go. I wasn't really taking anything seriously. I also consider myself a late bloomer. I mean, you know, in terms of like that, like physically, like connecting with people, like it has to like be something for me. So even to this day, I definitely consider myself bisexual. And my wife would say the same thing about herself. And I feel like, unfortunately, we've had a lot of like hang-ups even within the community, because even within the LGBT community, like ironically, there is a lot of stigma like placed on, you know, types. It's like they want you to be a certain way. They want you to put yourself in a box. You know what I mean? Lesbians don't like us because we're bisexual and we don't hate men. You know what I mean? And maybe for, you know, bisexuals, we ain't bisexual enough because we're married to each other. You know what I mean? And obviously we aren't straight. And, you know, it just so on and so forth. So it's just like, you know, I preach a lot about that as well, because it's just like, how dare you all want to be so inclusive, but then when you get in the circle, you're like dictating to how people have to be in this box and how they can be in this box, when I think we both just freely believe that, like, you know, sexuality is fluid, you know what I mean? And I think to a certain degree, we're all on a level of a spectrum, you know what I mean? And maybe your spectrum might not require you to have to say no homo because you're that secure, you know what I mean? That doesn't make you gay, but like that also don't make you homophobic, you feel me? So like we're all like on a line of some sort. So I think growing up in a church like I did, like, first of all, my father's a pastor. Like, let's start there. You know what I mean? Okay, my father's a reverend. You know what I mean? So that's just that, you know? And he'll be the first to tell you, like, that is not his end all to be all, because he also has a past that brought him to the light, okay? Right. So I'll be very clear on that. So I think that also because he lived another life before he went into, like, clergy, it gives him, you know, a different type of perspective. So I also want to be clear, like, with him not agreeing, like, I'm here, you know what I mean, for the weekend right now, like, in my father's home with his new wife and my little sisters. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, we more agree without being disagreeable on that situation, because it was a moral clause for him, but he loves my wife and he respects her and he respects, like, what we have going, you know, so that's just where we're at with that, you know? But it wasn't always like that.
No.
So, but I grew up, I'm born and bred, like, in ministry.
Yes.
You feel me? And not from my father's church, because my parents are divorced. I was raised by a single parent. But I was brought up by my mother in church as well. So it's just like, for me, I think a lot of times people think that the individual is just being so careless and like lawless with their soul. But I think that, you made a good point when you talked about people being ignorant. And I always want to correct when I call someone ignorant, because I'm not calling you stupid. Like, it literally only is the lack of knowledge
in that
on
particular
this
thing.
particular
Correct.
subject.
Right.
You know what I mean? So people take a lot of offense, but Janelle hit the nail on the head. That is the honest to God truth. And because people get so hung up on morality and like their view on it, I don't even think they think enough of the people going through it to even wonder what they're going through on the inside.
Right.
And spiritual turmoil was real. You know what I mean? Not just for me, but for my wife. And I mean, to the point where she also was raised in the church. I mean, has won Bible conventions and used to tell Bible stories and all of that other kind of stuff. So we get it honestly, but for me also, ironically, I wouldn't want to be with someone who I did not feel like was morally sound, So it's just like, we pray every morning together. You know what I mean? We pray at night. We pray over each other. And it's like, for some people, they just think, you lesbians now, y'all married each other, you're going to hell. Clearly, you don't love God. And it's just like, I wish they knew how many times we cried to each other and broke up, wishing that we could just be straight. You understand what I'm saying? So it's just like, everyone is like struggling in their battle of their own with it. And the only thing I wish people would give is a little more grace and compassion, because there are so many toxic heterosexual relationships that we don't even ask if the relationship is toxic, not toxic, or whether it's you gay, it's wrong. Right. Period. You know what I mean? So
especially when it comes from the church, because like what Britt was telling you before, I'll just change it up a bit.
Yeah.
But for sure, like, I know somebody that came out to me. And because the background is so highly spiritual, like Pentecostal, they're just like, they don't believe in that. And then automatically, because we're Spanish, they'll always be, "Tu pa infierno." You're going to hell. And so that's the first thing that comes out of their mouth. I know somebody from elementary school that once upon a time, when you're in elementary school, you have all these boyfriends that are not really boyfriends.
Who said?
But
I'm gonna say who
said?
who did that? Who said that? Because you couldn't tell me.
But like, I knew that he was gay. But we found each other on Facebook. He added me, and we were chatting it up. And I asked him about like how his mom was doing. He was like, I guess she's okay. And I was just like, what do you mean, I guess? And he was like, well, I don't. Probably you don't know, but I'm gay. And I was like, oh yeah, like, I know. And he was like, okay, like, why aren't you judging me? And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, that's why me and my mom don't talk, because she's a strict Catholic and she's judging me and she condemned me because I'm gay, and I know that you go to church. And I was like, but I'm not God. I'm not God to judge who you are. And Dad, like, changed his mind completely. We started talking like crazy. We were catching up. And he was just so appreciative that I wasn't judging him. I was like, because I have no rights to.
Right. I don't think anyone does that at any point. And I think that's the difficult part. I want you to touch a little bit back on, like, so coming out to your mom. So like,
yeah, let me
like,
get there. Okay,
she's
she's
fabulous.
Right. Let me
but
let me tell the real story, the coming out story per se.
Yeah.
Okay, so definitely, like, I was raised an only child. Like, they know in high school I dibble and dabble. When I got to college or whatever, my freshman year, I was dealing with a girl, like, coming into it who kind of like really kind of broke my heart. And I think I realized then, like, okay, maybe this isn't something so fickle, because like, you're feeling the same type of emotions you would towards a male. I met my wife my second semester of my freshman year in college. We were both met, and I remember, like, it was a very random connection. Actually, shout out to Simi, as you know, my main. Love Maine. She's in my For Life crew. She went to get chicken selects. I had known her since high school, and they like lived next door to each other or whatever. So like, I went up there to see Simi. Simi was on one of her fat ass runs, and Brandy was right next door. And I'm like, oh, you mind if I just sit in here, until Simi comes? I had seen Brandy once before. I had no idea. Again, my wife is also a feminine woman. So when we're together,
you don't know.
You don't.
So we'll be so
crazy.
Like we could be at like the strip club,
which is one of my
one of their favorite fucking places in the world.
Favorite spots.
Favorite places in the world. you would get like you guys would come up and just start talking to either her or her wife, and they'd be like, nah, we together. Like this is we like
we hit together.
Like who who is you?
Right.
Yeah. But it will always it happens very often because the fact that they both are feminine women.
Yeah, absolutely. And like extremely, and honestly that was important to me, and I think because I like, I still, I don't have a problem with men and I like them. If I wanted, that type, I feel like I would just go the male route, but to each its own. You know what I mean? But anywho, so we met or whatever. The first night that we ever met, we talked and stayed up together for 12 hours, and we've kind of been together off and off ever since. Like, we opened up to each other in ways like we never had, and it just felt like there was moral, like, soundness, you know what I mean? So I remember when we first got together, I put myself through so many, like, checkpoints because, again, the religion was really tugging at me because, like, I didn't stop, like, being full-blown in the church. Like, I came out of high school and, like, going away to college, like, working at my church, still coming home every Sunday for, like, a large period of time because I was only in New York to D.C. So when I really started, like, getting into the thick of it with Brandy, and it happened kind of fast and it was whirlwind. So I think part of it too was we were like, well, with everything coming up so fast, there's no way it could last. So that was like, let's say March. And of course we're leaving in May or whatever, we're going home. So already we had planned I'm gonna fly to you in Houston like this summer. Like it was crazy. So at first, our parents were just like, well, maybe they were besties and it was really cool. Like, and they just really miss each other. Like that's whatever, so for the first, I would say 2 to 3 years, about a year or so.
Maybe no more than 2, though.
Yeah, no more than 2 for sure. About a year into the relationship. Well, first year we were lying. Like, so we were girlfriends, and my feeling was I wanted my family to get to know her for who she truly was before automatically counting her out just because I was bringing her around in a different pretense. And I can look back, being more adult now, and say that the way I'm about to say about coming out was probably a little much, but like I was also 19. You feel me? And I maybe would have chose my words differently. But anywho, we we were just like really going through it. So it's just like when I realized it possibly wasn't going to be a phase and this was something extended, I do have a very tight-knit family, and I kind of wanted to tell on myself. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want anybody to find me out. Like, Brandy had been coming around. They were, like, loving her. You be as careful as you can, but now you getting more comfortable, and oh, my God, like, they going to find me out, da-da-da-da-da. So in true fashion, we did get found out. My aunt was living in Maryland, and we used to stay with her a lot from school. And when we would stay with her on the weekends, I'm so close to my aunt. Yeah. And she was just like, y'all act weird. Like, y'all be friends, but it also be seeming like y'all having lovers quarrels. You know what I mean? Like, and at this point, she's calling us both her nieces. You know what I mean? That's her, like, that's Joy's best friend at school. So she literally, she just called me and she put me to the side and she was like, what's up? Like, I'm not, I'm very in tune. Like, I know you, like, something's not right. So, I told her what was going on and she was like, well, like, what do you plan on telling nobody? She's like, because, I'm not going to, like, I think you should tell your mother. Yeah. Like, that's not for me to do. So at the time, I felt like I had some other issues on my chest. So I chose to I personally chose to write a letter to my mother. So I wrote her this 5-6 page detailed letter, kind of explaining some of my grievances. And it's like, in addition to that,
Hey, by the way, I like bitches.
Side note.
It's terrible. It was terrible. And my God.
You should have did P.S.
And mind you,
like bitches.
They grew up with my mom. Like, I had the party house again. I'm a single parent home. So it's just like my mom's beautiful. She's always been cool. She loves me unconditionally. But I think that any parent has a hard time wrestling with these quote unquote ideals they want for you. So I write her this letter. My grandparents and my aunt are there, like, to support me, and the shit just did not go the way I fucking thought it was gonna go. And granted, I ain't have nearly as bad as a time as my wife did, but goddamn, like, that shit was wild. So it's just like, I write her this letter, and what I thought was like me being so adult and like open, my mom was wildly offended by that
How
shit.
dare you?
How fucking dare you?
Yeah.
Write me this letter, and on top of that, but her biggest heartache was like, was I the last to know? Like, you've been running around, all these girls up in this house, like, what's up? So it's like, it took us a while to deal with that. And like, I couldn't really, the way she like started looking at me for a little bit. And then it's like, she went from like loving this person, Brandy, to trying to like get on a moral ground and like kind of banned us. And then our parents got in cahoots and so on and so forth. And like, it just wasn't kind. You know, it just wasn't completely kind. And I guess I don't understand when people cape about being so religious, quote unquote, that they're not necessarily leading with love, and it's so much judgment, you know? So I, you know, wrote her a letter. She immediately like sent me to real life therapy.
Oh my God.
To real life therapy, and not like conversion therapy, but like I had to go. Like she sent me to therapy. I felt like she didn't know what to do with me. No one did, and I'm the first and only person in like any generation that I know in my family to come out. I do not. I know for sure I'm not the only one that lives this lifestyle. Right. But I was the first. And I mean, one thing about me and what I also challenge people is it may be hard and you may lose a lot, but if you do not stand firm in your convictions and fight for what it is that you believe in and at least try to change people's narrative about whatever they think, it became a learning experience. So me now going on a crusade to like chop down this ignorance while kind of fighting and also being very nasty, like, I see a whole lot of glass houses because it's like your boyfriend ain't worth the damn and your man ain't worth, but you mad because like I'm in a committed, like this is the type of relationship you niggas wish you could have. You know, and that's honest to God. You could ask my friends, my mother now will even tell you how many people's minds we've changed by just being consistent and honest, like about it all. They know it all and ain't been perfect. Me and my wife relocated from DC, left everything we had, moved into her parents' home, and within a year we are completely estranged from them. She ain't spoke to her parents in 6 years.
Wow.
They were at our wedding. They were 2 of the 8 when we got hitched.
That's crazy.
So there's no right way.
As great of, you know, the stories and plenty other stories that we probably will tell over dinner and shit like that because it's hilarious in life, we are running low on time. So I just have one final question that I would love for you to answer.
And then can I ask Amanda a question?
Actually, you can ask her right now.
Okay. So with your experience, Amanda, with like someone like who came out to you and now you're dealing with this religious background, like, I guess what would you hope from your family, or like what would you want to know in terms of trying to like bridge that gap, or like fostering some type of just support or alliance for like this member that has now come out and you feel like is on the outs or not being supported? Like if there would be, I guess, anything you'd want to know from me or from that family experience, like what would you hope for them as just a non-judgmental party?
I hope that they are supportive, because I know how that family can be. And they're one of those, like, if you disappoint them, like they take their last name for pride. And so if you go basically against the family or against whatever they believe in, they kind of disown you. So I'm hoping for the best for her. It's hard, and that's why she doesn't feel fully ready to say anything. But yeah, especially like the world that we live in now, there's so many things out there, and they just be like, no, this is all from the devil, and that's it. So.
One thing I will just say about that in a religion, in essence, is like anything taken to the extreme is an error. And like the only advice I can give anyone with dealing with the child is like, you know, unconditional love. Like Christ died for like our sins. And if you even think about it in the sense of that, if that's what you believe in, who on earth are you to not extend a level of grace when only grace has probably brought you to where you are right now?
That's a word. And that actually was my question. I was going to say, what's one piece of advice you would give to, you know, people that's listening or that will listen that may be going through, you know, that situation themselves or know someone? What's one thing you wish you could have did differently?
Wish I could have did differently. Let me and Brandy speak for ourselves. One, and first and foremost, I always was defensive. I feel like I spent a lot of time like lashing out and defending and like pointing fingers at like what everyone else was doing that had a hard time with it. And I feel like that only made it seem as if like I was trying to justify like what I was doing. And I think that after being estranged from Brandy's parents, us choosing to be unapologetically who we were and leading with light and love and being the example that we never had. You know, my wife comes from a toxic marriage household where her parents are still married to this day. And as you know, we're estranged from them. I came from a single parent home where I am now rebuilding a relationship with my father that I never had because he was in and out and they couldn't get it right, which means they couldn't do right by me. You feel me? So in that, I feel like Brandy and I have only been able to change people's minds because you have no idea how many people have told us to our face, we don't usually fool with gay people, but y'all are just regular. And it's just like,
you ignorant ass nigga.
What does that even mean? You know what I mean? And it's so important for us to just be who we are. I challenge people, just be strong in your convictions, and sometimes it'll be heartbreaking and separating, but it's like your families will only respect it as much as you do.
There you go. That's
and I forced people to respect us, like for who we were, because we took vows, and it's sacred to us, just like any heterosexual family. We believe in God, you know what I mean, just like anyone else, and we want to create a morally sound home of generational curses that we chose to broken, so that we don't have to bring children into the next generation that'll have to recover from some of the things that we did.
There you go. So on that note, thank you for joining us and sharing your story.
You're welcome. Call me anytime.
First of all, she barely picks up the phone half the time, and she on a time difference. So, like, this bitch be honest, I'm like, call me anytime. Bitch, you was a whole lie. Let the viewers know your Instagram, because once again, you are an entrepreneur. You should have people plug yourself real quick.
Entrepreneur, you guys can catch me at Handcrafted. That's HANDKRFTED. I wear a couple of hats. Janelle is right. I am a full-time entrepreneur, and my goal is to help entrepreneurs, individuals, small businesses find their voices and capture target audiences within their community. So I run a full-blown production company that includes like the development and onboarding of people cultivating an image and presence for whatever their platform may be. So you can check me out at handcrafted.com, HANDKRFTED.com, and the same on my Instagram handle. And if you need a stylist, a producer,
all of that
A&R person, come to Death Row.
Well, girl, that's basically the Job of Tears Podcast Network. But anyway,
come to the Job of Tears Podcast Network and ask for handcrafting.
There you go. Once again, thank you for joining us on this super personal and special episode. Now I feel like we gotta really send this out to everybody.
I feel like we need to do another episode
where
we talk about entrepreneurship life, because I can't tell y'all all of that, and I'm telling y'all about being gay and living through.
But that was the goddamn topic, so don't even go there. Anyway, once again, thank you so much for joining us. Safe travels back to H-Town. As always, you can listen to not only this episode, but plenty of other episodes we've done in the past on the Job of Tears Podcast Network, on YouTube, on all streaming platforms, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, as Amanda likes to remind me. Any last words, Amanda?
No, I just really like this episode a lot.
No.
I think this is my favorite one.
Do you think it's me, though, Amanda?
Oh.
I mean,
on that note,
all right, get me out of here. I'm insufferable.
I'm about to say, get this.
You
give this bitch a mic. She's just like, it's me. What? Like, are you sure?
Get me out of here.
I would have liked, a whole other person to been present, but that's
I know, man.
Anyway, but we'll do this again. Thank you guys so much for listening, joining. Make sure to once again, please respect people's decisions in terms of their sexuality and things like that. You don't know what somebody's going through, and you don't know what they have already gone through. So just be respectful, be mindful, and don't be ignorant. But as always, I'm Janelle.
And I am Amanda.
And thank you guys for tuning in.
Bye.